Welcome back to So You Really Want to Learn Latin, and today we are going to be looking at the formation of adverbs in Latin. Now, an adverb is used to describe a verb, like I am singing loudly. It can also be used to describe an adjective, so you could say I am seriously cross. Okay, where the adverb seriously was describing the adjective cross. And they can also be used to describe other adverbs. So you can say, I am running seriously slowly. Okay, so that's how they work in English. How do they work in Latin? First and second declension adjectives, okay, so like bonus or any of the other variants on that, pulcher, tenor, and so on, regularly form the adverb by simply adding the letter E. So an adjective like dignus, meaning worthy, becomes digne, meaning worthily. Pulcher, meaning beautiful, becomes pulchre, beautifully. Just occasionally, and this is rare, and a little bit irregular, just occasionally you get an adjective that instead of adding an E, adds an O. And I'm only going to give you one, tutus, that means safe. The adverb from that is tuto, meaning safely. But, you can almost ignore that. So basically, you add an E to the stem of the adjective. Okay, that's if it's a first or second declension adjective. If it is a third declension adjective, you're going to add iter, or ter, or just occasionally er, to the stem of the adjective. Okay? So fortis, meaning brave or strong, becomes fortiter, bravely. Audax, meaning bold, becomes audarcter, meaning boldly. Constans, which means steady or constant, becomes constanter, steadily. Now you're going to ask, well, how do you know whether you add iter, ter, or er? And it's a good question. Basically, the answer is you add iter to the stem unless the stem ends in the letters nt, in which case you just add er. So that's what happened to constans. The stem of that is constant, and you add er to get constanter. Whereas fortis, the stem of that is fort, and to get the adverb you go fortiter, bravely, strongly. So, third declension adjectives, just add iter to the stem, and if when you get there you find the stem ended in the letters nt, just add er instead of iter. It's pretty straightforward. Audax was a bit silly because it went audarcter, but actually even the Romans got confused with that one, and you sometimes do see audarciter. So, I think we're okay. And as you'd expect, there are just a few irregular ones which you're going to have to cope with. I mean, for example, multus, which means much, you would expect the adverb to go multe. It doesn't, it goes multum. And facilis, you'd expect it to go faciliter. It doesn't, it goes facile. And what's actually happening with those slightly peculiar ones is they're just using the neuter singular of the adjective. Okay, but I think the thing to do is just learn those ones as they crop up. Facilis, you kind of learn that the adverb is facile. Multus is an irregular adjective anyway, so anything could happen there. If you think about it, it's comparative and superlative. So multus, the adverb is multum. I mean, it's not a very common adverb anyway, actually. What does it even mean? Much, a lot, I swam a lot. Natarbam multum, something like that. Anyway, that's how you form an adverb. Okay. And adverbs, while we're on the subject, can also have comparative and superlative forms. So you can say I was running quickly, or you can say you were running more quickly than your friend, or you can say you were running very quickly or the most quickly. Okay, so adverbs, we need to know how to form them, and we've just done that. You either add an E to the stem if it's first or second declension, or you add iter to the stem if it's third declension, and sometimes iter gets squished down to just air. But to form the comparative and superlative of adverbs, again, we just need to work out how it's done. Okay, well, let's see how it's done. To form the comparative of an adverb, you first have to go to the comparative adjective from which the adverb was formed, okay, and take that comparative adjective into the neuter singular form. Okay, so if we just have a go at that, if we take the adjective rectus, meaning right, rectus in the comparative goes rectior, and then in the superlative it would have gone rectissimus. Okay, so rectior is the comparative adjective from rectus. Now if you push that into the neuter form, rectior becomes rectius. Okay, if you remember how melior works, melior in the masculine and feminine, but melius in the neuter. Okay, so you're taking the neuter singular of the comparative adjective, and that then becomes the comparative adverb. So, you know, if you want to say, I did this more rightly, in a kind of more right way, you take rectus, the adjective, which means right. The adverb of that would be recte, rightly. But if we want to say more rightly, we go back to the adjective, rectus. We go into the comparative, rectior. We make that word neuter, rectius. And that is the comparative adverb of recte. So that means more rightly, rectius. Okay, and just to keep going, if you want the superlative adverb, you go to the adjective, rectus. This time you go into the superlative of that adjective, so that's rectissimus, and then you make that word end in an E, rectissime, and that means very rightly or most rightly. I haven't picked a particularly good word to use because I don't even know when you would use that. But as far as how you form it, that's how you form it. So if we do that with a slightly more sensible word, this will be a third declension one. So fortis means brave or strong. And we've worked out that fortiter means bravely or strongly. But now we want to say more bravely. Okay, so from fortiter, which means bravely or strongly, go back to the adjective, fortis, get into the comparative, fortior, make that word neuter, fortius, and that is your comparative adverb. So fortius means more bravely. I was fighting fortius than him. Okay, and the superlative adverb, if you were fighting very bravely, back to the adjective, fortis, into the superlative of the adjective, so fortis, fortior, fortissimus, and then you change us to e, and you get fortissime. So I was fighting very bravely, pugnabam, fortissime. Okay, now, you know, as with all of this stuff, you just have to learn these rules, the way things are formed, and once you've got it, you know, you've got it, you will then begin to see these words more and more in the passages of Latin you're looking at, And you just need to be thinking, oh, I know what that is. That is a comparative adverb. Or, oh, I know what that is. That is a superlative adverb. And when you see them in Latin, you probably won't have any difficulty translating them. As always, it's a little bit harder when you go the other way, because when you go the other way, you have to understand the rule and apply it properly. Okay, so just a little bit of practice of that. In the book, we are in, what are we in? We are in chapter 8, and this is exercise 8.5. So if I wanted you to give me the Latin for, first of all, an adjective, faithful, more faithful, and very faithful, okay, you need the Latin for faithful, which is fidelis. So fidelis, and then more faithful would be fidelior, and very faithful would be fidelissimus. But now, if we wanted the adverb, and the comparative adverb and the superlative adverb from that, okay, so we start with fidelis, faithful. We make that an adverb, fideliter, okay? So we've added iter to the stem of fidelis, which is fidel. So fideliter means faithfully. Now we want to say more faithfully. So we ignore fideliter, we go back to the adjective from whence it came, fidelis. We make that a comparative, which we've already done in the previous question, fidelior. But then we make that word neuter, fidelius. Okay, so we've gone fideliter, fidelius, and then the superlative adverb, back to the adjective, fidelissimus, and that becomes fidelissime. Okay? Okay, and we'll do one more of those. So beautiful, pulcher. The adjective, comparative and superlative, is going pulcher, pulchrior, pulcherimus. Remember, that's one of the funny ones. Erimus, not issimus, pulcherimus. The adverb, so pulcher, beautifully, would be pulchre. And then the comparative adverb would be pulchrius. So you've gone pulchrior and turned that into the neuter form, pulchrius. And then the superlative adverb, okay, back to the adjective, and the superlative of the adjective was pulcherimus. So the superlative adverb is pulcherime. Okay, actually those superlative adverbs are really quite easy, because as long as you know the superlative form of the adjective, and those are normally quite easy, you just add an E instead of an us. Okay, and then if you want to whack those into some sentences, at exercise 8.6, I'll just do a couple of these. The first one, the Romans have fought more bravely than the Gauls. Okay, the Romans have fought more bravely than the Gauls. So the Romans have fought, Romani pugnaverunt. Okay, now that verb will go at the end, but I'm just saying it now so I don't forget it. Romani, okay, more bravely than the Gauls. So, brave, fortis. More bravely, we go fortius. So that's the neuter of the comparative adjective, fortius. Than the Gauls, quam Galli. Okay, remember the Gauls must be in the nominative as well as the Romans, because we're saying the Romans have fought more bravely than the Gauls have fought. Okay, so they're being compared in the same case. So Romani fortius quam Galli pugnaverunt. And then we'll do a slightly more elaborate one, number 8. It's got all sorts of stuff going on. Our men were conquered by the Gauls, who fought very bravely. Okay, we've got a relative clause in there, how jolly. So, our men were conquered by the Gauls. Now, I don't know if I've told you this, but the Latin for our men is just nostri. So that's the nominative masculine plural of the adjective noster, which means our, And you don't need to put in a Latin word for men because it's assumed from the fact that you're using the masculine. Nostri means our men. By analogy, nostrae would mean our women, and I suppose nostra would mean our things. Okay, so nostri, by the Gauls, are Gallis. Our main verb were conquered is going to go right at the end, but if you remember our little rule about when you translate a relative clause, you translate a relative clause immediately after you have translated the antecedent. Well, we're kind of doing that in reverse here. We're working out when shall we put the relative clause, and we're going to put it immediately after we've put the antecedent, which in this case is the Gauls. So, nostri are Gallis, comma, who fought very bravely, qui fortissime pugnabant, or you might want pugnaverunt, comma, were conquered. That's our men were conquered. Victi sunt. Okay? So, adverbs. Pretty easy. Couple of things to learn. First and second declension adjectives, you basically add an E to the stem. Third declension adjectives, you basically add iter to the stem. Few variations which you pick up on the way. And then to form the comparative and superlative adverbs, the comparative adverb is the same as the neuter of the comparative adjective, and the superlative adverb is the superlative adjective with an E on the end instead of an us. Okay, that's all there is to it. Okay, see you back here next time for more Latin. Do sign up to this channel if you haven't already. Lessons every Tuesday and every Friday. Drop me a comment if you need any help, and I'll see you very soon.